I'm in the happiest place in the world, and I get to bring to you a man from Chicago to Jackson State to Stew Pot Stowaways, Abstract Mindstate, to getting robbed of a victory at a Def Jam contest, to becoming A&R of Kanye West's Good Music, to creating Honest Management and G2 Productions, and solidifying himself as a pillar of integrity in the music and film industry. It is my absolute honor to bring you a man that I am forcing to be my friend for the rest of his life. He has no idea on that, but I do. Greg Olskool Ice-Gre Lewis. So why don't we just get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never know, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
So, hey, check this out. G.O.O.D, an Abstract Mindstate fan, a WGI contest, the Source magazine, putting in hard work and being prepared, dropping music off to a DJ at Crew Sports, and Kanye West. Give it to me.
Okay, so I'll break that down to you. WGCI, that's Chicago's #1 station for hip hop and R&B. Crew Sports, that was one of the sports apparel stores these young brothers owned at the time. These twins, actually, they had about 2 or 3 locations. We used to sell our music out of there, as well as every other sports store in the city, and they really supported us. And Crew Sports is where the G.O.O.D, Kanye connection and me come in, because at the time, that is the location where the Source magazine was shooting. They were shooting. It was the clothing line was called Mecca. The Mecca clothing line was doing a shoot on Kanye early in his career, and G.O.O.D was driving the Source truck doing a promotion at a summer promotion at the time, and I'm at Crew Sports watching it all from across the street. And when I say across the street, anybody who's from Chicago, they know that the store was on Stony Island. And on Stony Island, it's literally an island, like it's a street going, going each direction with an island in the middle. And they happen to decide they want to shoot it right in the middle right there. So I'm standing on the side, leaning against the store, watching all of this go down. But the interesting part was, we were the hottest, at the time, we were the hottest group in Chicago, the hottest duo, hip hop duo in Chicago. And G.O.O.D was on our album. He was featured on a skit on our album. And he asked for a copy of the album. And he said, man, I'm driving the Source truck in the summer. And he took it upon himself. When he asked us for a copy, he said, man, I'm not going to give anybody a copy. And he took it upon himself to come up with the idea to want to play the record in the Source truck. Instead of playing all of the other artists that was signed, he played our record the whole summer. And during their photo shoot, the record was playing, and a then up-and-coming producer by the name of, Kanye West at the time, kept hearing each song come on back to back. And he kept asking G.O.O.D, man, who is that? And he kept on saying, man, that's Abstract Mindstate. Another song come on. He like, who is that? Now, you know how you can read somebody's lips. I'm watching him mouth it, and he pointing to the truck saying, like, who is that? Like, and G.O.O.D said, man, that's Olskool Ice-Gre right there, pointed to me across the street. You know what I'm saying? And he just walked up to me, and that birthed that whole relationship.
Talk to me about this. I've actually got to go to it, because for everyone out there listening, you got to read Ice-Gre's book. It's not only a page turner, but it's one of those things where it is a roller coaster, Ice. Like, when I went on the roller coaster with you, but I was I was reading in, and I marked it because I wanted to read this exact quote.
Feel free. Let's go.
Let's see. Hold on. Let me get to it.
What
Okay.
chapter? It look like you in a. It look like you.
I'm deep. I'm all done with it, but I just marked this one. Okay, here goes. Man, y'all got fire. How come you never worked with me?
Oh, y'all got.
Because
Go ahead.
we know who you are and we can't afford you. How you know I won't work with you, or how you know I won't work it out for a dope, I ain't gonna say it, from Shy. Will act like it, take my number, and that changed the game.
That changed the game. Yeah. And that was just like when you got two Chicago guys, it's almost like, they joke about us. They say Chicago guys got game. And it's not just with the ladies, but it's just how we speak. It's not even, I don't really think it's game. I think we just really good with conversation, or we're we're also really good at willing and dealing. So both of us at that time was kind of, he was trying to sell me on him, and I was trying to sell him on the, make clear on the idea that, hey, man, we know about you. You were up, he was an up and coming hot producer at the time. And I had heard of the couple of names he had worked with. And at the time it was only a couple, but for Chicago, that was a huge deal at that time. And he had already worked with Harlem World, Foxy Brown, and somebody. It may have been Lil Kim as well by the end. I'm not sure, but yeah, Lil Kim, Foxy Brown, and Harlem World. So that was just like gigantic. So when he trying to come to me like, man, how come y'all ain't done no music with? And I'm like, dude, we can't afford you. I mean, that was the first thing I thought with it. In my head, I'm like, if you worked with them, we way out of the range of being. And his whole point was, and using the slang, how I won't work it out for a dope nigga from the Shy, And I was just like, hey, act like it. He said, take my number. I said, all right. And it was just like game spit, like he challenging me, like, okay, let's see what we can do. And it worked out, man. He ended up, on our first album, our debut album, We Paid Let Us In.
Well, what I love about this though is because when people look at you, and even when we just met at the Arrested Development concert, and we didn't know at the time, but I got out my truck, you got out your car at the exact same time at 2:30. The concert didn't start till 7, but everybody knows Olskool. Everyone, like all I heard all night was, oh, did you see Olskool? Olskool's here. Olskool's here. All this stuff. I didn't know who it was, like, but I knew the persona. But when everyone hears about you, they're like, oh, well, the streets must be paved with gold. But you have this journey, and I'm getting goosebumps as I say it. But the journey, how can a hip hop guy use a Popeye quote to be able to motivate him and push out the message? And tell us what that quote is from Popeye.
Popeye, is that what I am? I am is what I am, and that's all that I am. I am what I am. And you know why that's so inspirational to me? First of all, I was a cartoon junkie. Let's just be all the way honest with that. Growing up, I was a super cartoon junkie, right? Popeye, definitely one of my favorites. And that whole I am that I am, and that's all that I am, is something that I, as a growing up, an only child, I have a sister, but she came into my life much later. We had the same father, not the same mother. So I say it like this: I'm my mother's only child. So I grew up an only child, and with that, unlike the normal only child, the whole mama's boy, spoiled brat, that whole thing. My mama tell you, I kind of was super independent. I kind of went left when it's more common to go right. And all I'm saying is, I was very clear early on that I'm just gonna be me. I'm just gonna be myself. I never believed in peer pressure. It didn't exist to me. You know what I'm saying? And all this is directly related to the Popeye quote, because it keeps coming back to that. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. Like, I'm not going to be anything extra than myself. This guy who loves what he loves, passionate about what he's passionate about. And I'm not, here to disrespect, hurt, or, or mistreat anybody, misuse or mistreat anybody,
being a Chicago hip hop legend, again, like when you think of that, you in yourself with Abstract Mindstate, and we're going to get into the Stew Pot Stowaways too, but and then being the A&R for Kanye, looking at these things again, it seems like a road just paved with gold, everything smooth, everything that ice touches is gold. But talk to me about the pivotal moment where you had the opportunity to go to college in Chicago, or not in Chicago, in Illinois, but then you chose Jackson State.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes,
And you chose Jackson State, which was a hard decision, but it opened up a whole different realm, because God, what I find is God's road isn't always straight to the place where we think it is. He's going to take us on some journeys and pick up some stuff. How hard was that to make that decision going to Jackson State?
Oh man, it was super hard to make that decision because, okay, so here it is. I went to a high school. The name has changed now. I went to CVS, that's Chicago Vocational High School. Now it's been changed into like Chicago Vocational Career Academy. It's CVCA. We refuse to call it that, so it's still CVS to the real ones. But anyway, I went to CVS, and what's strange about CVS is it's such a big school, one of Chicago's largest schools. It's so big that it was like a college. My freshman class was 1,200 and something, so in high school. So why that transition was so hard, because my best friend, still one of my best friends to this day. His name is Chill, Anthony Garland. He was known as Aunt Chill. Now we just call him Chill, and Chill and I were a rap group, and we were serious. We were called the Peace Posse, and we were serious. We had made a name in Chicago. We used to do shows around town. We would tear the hallways of our high school apart. Like the lunchroom and the hallways didn't have a chance with a Peace Posse, And back then it wasn't many rap groups or even rappers, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, when it came down to us to graduate, I mean, you got to realize we're a duo. We're a team. We are the Peace Posse. And then my cousin, who at the time his name was Lazy Lee, but my cousin Lee, who later became our manager, and to this day, he helps run all of the honest management stuff and road manages when we go on the road and we're able to all go together. He still handles management duties to this day, but he was a student at Jackson State. Now, mind you, he's put it like this: when I'm a senior, he's already like a sophomore in college. So he's been telling me about Jackson State since I was a sophomore in high school when he was a freshman there. So I got this one side, like my group, we're going to go to Southern Illinois University. We're going to Carbondale. We're going together. We're going to tear things down as Peace Posse, at Southern, right up the street in Illinois, not far from Chicago, right? And then Lee, more known as Lee Majors. So you're going to hear me say Lee Majors. Then Lee Majors came to me, and he hit me with all this Jackson State paraphernalia, telling me about the experience at the HBCU. And I was kind of torn, like, okay, this is interesting, but anybody will tell you, and if you read the book, I'm pretty loyal. So I was like, nope, me and Chill, I'm going to Southern. So my cousin, Lee Majors, he pulled the trick on me. He said, you know what I want you to do? He said, I want you, when my father come to pick me up on this break, I want you to ride with him. I had no idea what he was doing. He knew the whole time. Man, look here, Kelly, I got on the campus of Jackson State University. I looked around. I saw all those beautiful Black women. I saw all of this like culture and camaraderie between my brothers, and the vibe and the whole, sorority fraternity thing. And I was like, yo, what is this? And then next thing I know, Lee Majors got me walking in the dorms, and I'm seeing how everybody is just like, it reminded me of, it was exactly like a different world. It was the show, the spinoff to the Cosby Show, A Different World. It was exactly like a different world. And I was like, yo, I have to live this. And then, I had to make the hard decision to tell Chill, like, hey, man, I'm going to Jackson State. I am not staying in Illinois. I'm going to Jackson State. And it wasn't easy because it was almost like I was slightly tearing my group apart. That's how it felt then. And that was the hardest part. But we maintained. Even my first year at Jackson State, we maintained. In my second semester, we got a record deal. The Peace Posse did, and Chill came down there to start recording the album, and that's when the realization hit him. And he even broke it down to me. And that's when you got a good friend in your life. He even broke it down to me that when he saw how Jackson State was and the way the camaraderie was with my hip hop buddies down there, and EP at the time, I don't want to mess up any question you might ask, but like EP was a artist I was working with at the time, like a solo artist, you know what I'm saying, that I was developing and managing and grooming. I was doing my A&R artist development on her when I didn't even recognize or realize what an A&R or artist development was, but I was doing it on EP. And when Chill saw how me and her was working together, he pulled me to the side at our studio session after signing the paperwork for our deal the day before. He said, "Hey man, I gotta be honest, bro." He was like, "I'm looking at what you're doing down here." He said, "I'm at Southern, bro. It's nothing like this." He said, "I'm not even in the same vibe as we were in high school, because my brotherhood now is associated through my fraternity, because he's a Kappa. He joined the Kappa fraternity and KA Psi." And he was like, "Man, you live in a whole nother thing." And he said, "And I can't even front. You and EP sound amazing. I think y'all should be a group." And I looked at him like, what are you? Now he's saying this to me, Kelly, in the studio recording a song after we signed a record deal the day before. You know what I'm saying? So imagine that position. And I looked at him like, are you crazy? And one side of me wanted to be mad, but another side of me looked and said, man, this might be the realest friend or thing. This might be the realest thing a friend can say to you, and if they being honest and unselfish. And that's when I said, wow, this is my dog. And I said, as much as it hurt me, because he pretty much breaking up Peace Posse right now at the studio, he's making it clear now before we get too deep into this. And so I had to rock with it. Still love my brother to this day. And that birthed EP and I. That began the idea of, of us working together, just the idea, because we didn't come together as a group until a few years later. But that planted the seed for the idea of, man, maybe this will work, because at that time it was no such thing as a male-female duo. It's still not. We still the only male-female duo in hip hop. So yeah.
Well, you have to be a dreamer to, number one, to make it in the music industry. But then let's take it and make it even harder, Ice, because you're in Chicago, where Chicago wasn't an epicenter for hip hop. It was New York.
Yeah.
So to be a dreamer, though, most of the time, and this is what I felt through your book the whole time, was as a dreamer, once we get an opportunity, we're like, oh my gosh, I can relax a little bit because this is the second coming. Everything's good from here. And we get this feeling every time. When you signed the record deal with Peace Posse, because I was with you and I was like, damn, okay, this is where he made it. Kanye comes in, Common comes in, Slum Village comes in, De La Soul starts loving on you. I'm thinking that the whole world just opens up. But take us, and I'm not laughing at your plight, but I'm just saying,
No, it's okay. Listen, man, let's laugh. It's to be laughed at. That's, man, come on, feel free.
So take us to that dreamer mind state. I signed the deal with Peace Posse. Now my life is like champagne and caviar and private planes for the rest of my life. But then tell us the reality of it.
Man, the reality, and it's funny. I'm glad you kicked it off and teed it up like that, because that's exactly what I was thinking. To the point, nobody knows this. Have I ever said this in the interview? I'm not sure if I ever said this in the interview before, but that Caviar campaign dream, champagne and caviar dreams was so real in my head that I started sitting in class not doing anything, because I was like, I'm about to be a rap superstar. I'm about to be LL Cool J. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because LL was like the quintessential rap. So it's different artists did different things for me, and LL made me believe you can be a rap superstar. And that's who I thought I was about to be. I thought I was about to be LL Cool J, right? And so I messed up, man, and I started like not doing nothing in class, sitting there, because in my head, I'm dreaming about what I'm gonna be doing after this and past college and all of that. And, I'm gonna have to drop out. This is what I'm thinking. I end up messing up my grades and end up getting kicked out of school, because I let my grades drop across the board so bad that I got put out, and and that scared me straight. But that's another story. But bottom line is, I can build on that. But I want to answer your question. Basically, in the mind of a dreamer, man, you're thinking it's about to be the biggest thing. Then the first stop is what I just shared with you all. Chill told me this, and now I'm like, hold on. We've done this. We've been doing this since 1986, and now here it is, 1990, and you telling me it's a rap. You're not even into it like you used to be. I should rap with this female that's standing in front of us. That sounded ridiculous and scary to me at the same time, because I'm like, because I knew at that point I got to start all over again. You know what I'm saying? So the reality of the dream the reality of it smacked me in my face, because it was just like, oh, wow, I was not expecting this. I was thinking of this, like you said, I was thinking of like private jet flights and, getting whisked around at the time in a limo, because, limos was a thing then. So, now you call a limo for me, we might end up in a fight, because you better not send me no limo. You better send me an SUV. No, I'm just... No, I'm joking. I'm all jokes, man. But I'm serious. But I'm joking. But
hey, take me back too, because with the Jackson State part, you
right.
started thought, hey, I don't even need this school stuff. But then you did something that impressed me so at such a high level, because a lot of people would just tuck their tail and walk away and say, okay, I got kicked out of school. But you did something to get your butt back in school.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what I did. So in the process of that, I'll be honest. Have you ever seen that show Scared Straight, where the inmates be hollering at the kid? You know what I'm talking about, right? Scared Straight, like that TV show where the inmates in prison, they take the bad kids to prison and let them see what prison life is about. Well, Let me just be 1,000% honest. Here I am, man. I consider myself, it's a moniker. I call myself a good guy from a bad block, because I grew up straight up in the hood with some thugs, killers, and in a rough neighborhood. But I was like the good guy in the middle of that, meaning like, I maintained, carried myself a certain way and never got in trouble in the midst of a whole lot of trouble. So I'm saying that to say, yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm saying that to say the good guy, I was like, I done came 12 hours away from home and just got kicked out of school. So that was like, my parents and my family are all kicking in, helping us, sending us money every month to maintain. I was like, I cannot tell them I done got kicked out of school after I did all this to everybody. And I got scared straight. And what you're talking about is what I did was, not to mention that I had a lot of loss that year in my family. I lost a lot of members of my family. It was just a lot of depressing things going on while I had this record deal and thought I was about to be a star. So what I did was I found out, I was like, I got to get back in school. I didn't know what to do. And I found out that you can do something called write a letter of appeal, is what it was called. So I had to write a letter of appeal because you have to go to court, so to speak, at the college, and they have to read your letter in front of a board, which is like the jury, and they decide based on your letter, should they let you back in the school on probation, right? So I wrote this letter of appeal, and I ain't gonna lie to you, Kelly. I sat there and I was about to make up I'm an artist, I'm a writer, right? I was about to make up the most amazing story to get back in school. I was gonna tell this ridiculous tall tale. And every time I got the pen close to the paper to make up this fabricated story to make them feel sorry for me, I couldn't do it. So I just took a chance, man. It was one of them things. It was the spirit, the universe, God, call it all of that. But I just told the truth. My letter of appeal was the God's honest truth. I was like, I got this record deal. I thought I was going to be a star. I let it go to my head. And then, I was honest. I said, I experienced a lot of loss this year in my family. I started dealing with financial stuff, and my whole family had to kick in and give a little bit to help my parents help me, because my stepfather who raised me got laid off his job, and it was and so I just told the truth about everything because I felt I was backed in the corner. And man, lo and behold, to show you how the spirit works, that truth worked for me. Like they let me back in off of the truth. I thought if nothing else, I felt like I got it off my chest. If I don't get back in school, at least I got all that off my chest. You know what I'm saying? But I wrote that letter of appeal, man, and they let me back in. And here's the amazing thing, and you probably remember this in the book. When I got back in, Scared Straight was still stuck on me. I got all A's that semester, and I made it to what they call I've been saying for years that I made it to the dean's list, but a friend of mine just corrected me and said all A's is the president's list. So I didn't know that, but I've been saying the dean's list, but I made it to those lists first semester back, and I never looked back, man. That's when my grades started changing. That's when everything changed because the reality of being a star had just showed me that, hey, it's not necessarily smooth as you think. So,
well, the cool thing is too, and in reading this and just doing the research on you, you're a man of your word. You're a man of integrity. You're loyal. Some people would say loyal almost to a fault at times, but
no doubt.
I wouldn't say to a fault. But then you add into the mix people who maybe don't keep their word. They don't tell you the whole story. And there was a duo. I don't know if it was I think it was a husband and wife that had a business, and then you guys started a club on the top, and you chose a name.
Oh yeah,
you chose a name off of it
man.
because you didn't want it to just only be about hip hop. You wanted it to be about music and experience, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me that story, because this one was wild, because you trust people the way that you would be entrusted, which means that you would hold your word, but not everyone's holding their word. And so in the mind of a dreamer, it's tough because we're saying, I'm dreaming, I'm going to fulfill my responsibilities, but not everybody does that.
Right. So let me break that down. Oh man, you asking some amazing questions that let me know you really read the book. So okay, so I'm gonna start this out by saying shout out to a brother by the name of Armis Moncure, who we affectionately call Q. Armis Moncure, he also went to Jackson State. He was a business major. He was a year or two ahead of me. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years ahead of me. Probably 2 years ahead of me. And he was the same, how do I say it? The same level of hustle and passion I had for this music, entertainment, being an artist. He had that same passion for business, and he approached me to be our manager. And I loved his entire approach and just the way he carried himself, and brought him on board. So what happened with me and Q, man, me and Armis, me and Q, I was a guy that shared his same entrepreneurial spirit. And he came to me and said, "Hey, man, I met with this older couple." He said, "You know that building directly across the street from Tougaloo College, in Jackson, on the north side of Jackson, Tougaloo College." He said it's a building called the Chateau. This older couple, man, they have it, and they're not really bringing much foot traffic through there. And I thought about everything we doing, man. And how do you feel about like me and you coming together and approaching them about starting like a hip hop spot? And his whole thing was, I'm just trying to think of ways to create a space for Abstract Mindstate. I mean, my group, at the time, to have an outlet to perform. Now, mind you, at this time we had the Stupat Stowaways, which I know you're gonna ask about that, and we're gonna get into that. But so I said, okay. I said, man, Q, let's do it. I'm into it. So we sat down and wrote this proposal and all of that. I had my input. Q was the one at the time that was actually doing all of the writing, but I was, bringing the ideas to the table. Later, I became very solid in writing proposals and stuff too, which we don't even do. We got Chat GPT now. But anyway, Q, we sat down with this older couple, man, and we pitched them our idea of a place that we wanted to call it the Top Flow. And the Top Flow to kind of play off of hip hop, saying flow, hip hop is flow. And the reason we was calling it the Top Flow, because it was actually on the top floor. It was on the second floor of this building, of this 2-story building. So we like the top floor. And then me and Q, we really thought about it and say, you know what? This is like not just about hip hop. This is about music. Because at the same time, it was some chicks, man, that he was managing, and they were like our sisters in music. They were called Mystery. There was a quartet. It was 4 of them. And so we was like, we're gonna make this thing about music. So instead of calling it the top flow, making it just hip hop, we're gonna just stick with what it is. And we said we're gonna call it the top floor, which signifies like, hey, the music happens up above, up here. So boom, we got that done. Man, we built that place up, man. We built it out. Q got the first, before liquor sponsors was even a thing. He secured Miller Genuine Draft. Miller had just that was the new beer at the time, and they wanted to introduce that into the market because it was brand new, and they became our sponsor. So we had liquor, and man, we had a crew that passed out flyers. Next thing you know, we was packing this place every week. Now the big problem with it was the older couple didn't reveal to us that they were so far in debt already that yeah, they were so far in debt with the bank that with that any day it could have got foreclosed on. So after about, I don't know, maybe a couple of months of consistent, I'm talking about, we had an amazing turnout, and we charged like, I think it was like I want to say it was something maybe like $5. It wasn't a lot, but for the amount of people we would get in there, we made nice money. And it was an amazing place. It was Jackson, Mississippi's first hip hop club. It was a hip hop club. It was open for music, but it was a hip hop club, and it was Jackson, Mississippi's first hip hop club, man. And we did that thing, man. And one day we came thinking we were about to do our night, and the place was closed. They didn't even warn us, man. They didn't tell us, you know what I'm saying? Imagine being about 60 days or plus in, and we think we going smooth, and we came there and the place had a chain on the door. It was locked up with a note up there. The bank had foreclosed on the place, man. It was a terrible thing.
Well, what I noticed is again, like in the mind of a dreamer, and you conveyed this so great, is there's these peaks and valleys. It's almost like I'm just about there. And it was, I think, 27 chapters, somewhere around there. I tell you, it was the most roller coaster ride, because at the middle of every chapter, I was like, cool, Ice got it. Like, it's good. The planes are coming, the champagne's coming, the concerts, the world tours. And then by the end of the chapter, I was like, damn, they did it to him again. So,
yeah.
Talk to me about this Stew Pot Stowaways, because I think this was major, because, I mean, with the exception of Wu-Tang Clan, there wasn't a collective of MCs the way that you guys put these guys together.
Yeah, well, it didn't exist. So I'm gonna tell the story the way it has to be told, because I didn't, a few of my members that try to tell this story, and they tell it so wrong and so bad, So I'm gonna tell the story the right way. So the Stew Pot Stowaways, first of all, started. We had 2 generations of the Stew Pot Stowaways. One was it all started with a combination of Midwest and Southern guys hanging out and realizing we were on the same wavelength. This may have been this was in 1991. Not even may have been, for a fact. It was in 1991. And the original Stew Pot Stowaways, when me and a brother named Humdinger, who was a part of a group called the Ragabumpkins, who were the very first artists from Mississippi to get in the unsigned hype in the Source. And he and I, because of another legend in Mississippi by the name of Mellow T, like, he's mostly known for a group called Children of the Cornbread, but his foundational group was a group called Wildlife Society. It was him and 2 DJs. He was almost like Large Professor with the 2 DJs. He had Howie Howe and Sleepy Neville's, and they and Wildlife Society was like huge in Jackson, Mississippi. And Mellow T, his name is Chris, but Mellow T was his stage name. Mellow saw something in me, man. Like, he was a gangster in Jackson, Mississippi. He was a gangster and a gentleman. You know, he was a real live gangster street dude, but also the most hip hop gentleman that you could ever meet. And he saw something in me. Although his style was super street, he liked how I got down. So he kind of put his arm around me and he said, man, I want to show you my city. I want to show you the entertainment side of the city. And he took me around. And when I got to see the city, I started realizing, okay. And he said, I want to open up my place, man. I have a weekly spot for you all to perform. And I would love to get, you know, you and your guys, whoever you want, man, y'all just come in here and rock. And so the Stu Pot Stowaways, we have, you know, me and Humdinger had co-founded this thing and gave it a name and a concept and combination of Midwest and Southern flavor and all of this. And man, we got up in there, man, and that crowd was so street and so hardcore that it was so many of us that when we on stage rapping, we would actually had their attention for maybe a song and a half, and then they and then they listening to us. Imagine being in the best way I can put it. You know, hip hop is hip hop, and we love how we finally all come together under one banner. But I'm gonna be honest. Imagine leaders of the new school trying to perform for a crowd that's there to see NWA and Scarface. Like you get what I'm saying? So you get that visual, right? That was the Stu Pot Stowaways. So we, like I say, we formed this crew. Well, I take it back. We hadn't formed the crew yet. I just brought my guys to try to take advantage of this opportunity that was presented to me because Mellow T told me that I can bring my guys and we can all get down. And so because we realized that we wasn't making it through too many songs without the natives getting restless, so to speak, we said, that's when me and Humdinger said, you know what, it got to be a better way to do this because we noticed we can get through a couple of songs, but man, it's too many of us. So we came up with the idea. We said, hey, maybe if we all perform together as a crew, we'll still be breaking up into individual groups and all of that, or solo artists, but let's just perform all together. And that way we'll get through it. And that worked, man. We got in there and we would get through 3 songs before they'd be like, okay, enough of this boom, ha, let me just run both tough skin. Oh, they was about sick of that, right? Because we was on there, we was super backpack, you know what I'm saying? Riggedy row, you know what I'm saying? So, and so, but we were dope though. The original Stu Pot Stowaways was super lyrical. So that whole group of guys in 91, they had a situation where all of them end up having to go home. And there went my crew. Boom, I'm back at square one. So in 1993, me and Humdinger looked at each other because we started seeing the scene come together. And again, we was attracting like spirits again, the people who had the same vibe as us. And now, mind you, he was from Mississippi, I was from Chicago. So we was always balancing it out to find Mississippi and Chicago guys that's like kind of fit our vibe. And that's when we formed the second generation of the Stu Pot Stowaways. And that's when David Banner and Kamikaze and, you know, all of the guys came in. We even had some girls in the crew, you know, Satin and, you know, and a group called Ego. It was a bunch of us. We were 17 deep, like you read in the magazine. We was even bigger than the last crew. Now, this generation of the Stu Pot Stowaways, this was the generation that made waves. Not only did we become known all throughout Mississippi and various parts of the South, we started getting write-ups in all of the major magazines at the time. And we didn't just start getting those write-ups either. That was also me. Me and my man, I got to credit Kamikaze as well from that was in Crooked Letters. You know, he's known as from Crooked Letters, but Kamikaze is an artist himself in Mississippi. He's a legend down there. Me and Kamikaze, we was the worker bees, man. We was some beavers in the Stu Pot. We would be the ones writing letters and sending packages and doing all of this stuff. But it really came together when I got at Loud Records and I was able to send these packages as a guy sending a package from publicity, and it made them pay attention. And that's really when the crew started getting even more write-ups, because in 95 is when we saw the most write-ups. But 93, 94, we had journalists flying down to see what was going on. And they jokingly called us you know where I'm finna go, I think of the article may have been, I don't know if it was Rap Sheet or Rap Pages, or just, I think it may have been Rap Sheet. They called us the Stu-Tang Clan. And they said, because you got to realize now it's like 94, 95, and
Yeah.
and the Wu-Tang had made their mark in 93. We were doing the same thing, but we just didn't know each other because they was in New York and we was in Mississippi, you know. So anyway, they said not to be confused with the Wu. The Stew Pot Stowaways represent for Ole Miss. That was such a dope. I remember that like it was yesterday. That was such a dope like way to introduce us. And their birth, the Stew Pot Stowaways, man. And my house, everybody will tell you. David Banner would be the one to tell you, man. My crib was hip hop central. Everybody in the Stew Pot hung out at my house. Me and Lee Majors, we were roommates and first cousins, and our crib was hip hop central. And not just for the Stew Pot, anybody who came to town to do a show in Jackson, Mississippi, ended up at my house, you know, and we freestyling and kicking rhymes or whatever. Because we were, man, Devin the Dude, what's the name? Jazzy Faye. Because Devin used to be in a group called I-Squad, and the whole I-Squad, it was Jug Mug and he was a blind producer rapper. He was incredible. I forget his name. He was part of I-Squad. And yeah, all of them. And I want to say at the time, Jazzy Faye was going by Phelan. He was going by Phelan, and he was it was something with this group, Funkaholics or something like that. But yeah, man, and this girl named Trina, I remember her name. My name just popped in my head for some reason. Trina from Rapper Lock Records. She used to be the one bringing them and this dude named Big Mello and all of them. And we would just freestyle in a circle at my crib, man, my off-campus apartment. And so we became known, man, especially in the South in Atlanta. And, you know, Lil Jon, like everybody knew about us, you know. And that birthed the Stew Pot Stowaways. And again, we was Midwest and Southern flavor. We had a couple of guys from Africa in the crew, but they lived in Atlanta. So that's why we was able to say, okay, they from the South too, because they live in Atlanta. They, you know, although they was African, they was from Nigeria. But the Stew Pot Stowaways was a combination of Midwest and Southern flavor. And that's how that worked. So yeah, man, it was a crazy time. And, you know, David Banner, he battled the Wu-Tang Clan by himself. You know, me and Kamikaze battled Jay-Z and Ski from Original Flavor. You know, we ran up on some of the we you know, we tried to battle the alcoholics and we end up getting drunk under the table. So we won't, you know.
You beat them the first time. You beat
We
them
beat
the
them
first
the
time.
first time. We outdrank them, but it was funny because in the book, you know, remember I told you, I said they tried to tell us they wasn't feeling good, but we thought they was running game, and you know, we got our chest swole up. We like the Stew Pot Stowaways. We outdrank the alcoholics. We the real alcoholics. We was talking so crazy. And that was at this thing Breakout, you know, that I talked about on Sway's Universe. It was this new convention called Breakout that didn't quite get its legs, but everybody was there. That happened there, but then we met at Freaknik 93, and the alcoholics drunk us under the table, and you know, the respect we had for J-Roll, Tash, and E Swift after that, they were the kings. We had the crown. They were the kings. We would never. We learned never try to outdrink the alcoholics. We learned that day.
Well, and the Stew Pot Stowaways started to gain traction. You guys have all this love in the South. You're starting to move. You got David Banner around. You're doing these things.
Yeah.
But then there's something that comes along that kind of side rails that. You segue into Abstract Mindstate. Help us to understand that segue, because then what I loved was seeing that a height again. Then there's a valley. Then there's Abstract Mindstate, and then there's a trip to, I believe it was New York, and you were promised to be able to be a feature, but they only let you perform for 2 minutes and cut your mics off.
Oh man, yeah, that's, you know, that set up early this day. EP used to have this, like, she did not like going to New York. She used to just, anytime New York come up, she used to be like, and it was because of what I talked about in the book. So fast forward, you know, I graduate, you know, EP comes home. We started doing our thing in Chicago, and right away we started making a name for ourselves because, as you heard me mention, I had the opportunity to work at Loud Records in publicity. So besides already knowing how to do stuff and send packages, and me being a credit reader with magazines.
Take me back to Loud, because Loud was so incredible. I loved this story.
Yeah.
You got the offer, and they said, you
Yeah.
need to be out in LA right away. You pack up
Yeah.
everything. Your friend says,
Yeah.
hey, I got you. Don't worry about
Yeah.
anything. You could come live with me. So you pick up your life, you move to LA. Your boy doesn't come through on the place to stay. You end up in a bootleg ass apartment, and then it
Yeah.
burns down. And 3 months in, then they tell you at Loud Records what?
Yeah, exactly. Then after all that you said, because it happened just like that, and then 3 months into my stint at Loud Record, they tell me that that Steve Rifkin says he's gone, kind of over budget on Only Built for Cuban Links, and they can't pay me anymore my salary. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And well, he left that up to Noah to break it down to me. So Noah Ochi, who, shout out to Noah Ochi, because I love her for the foundation that she provided for me, to exercise what I knew how to do, but she let me stick my hands in that clay, and shape it. But yeah, they told me they couldn't pay me anymore. So they said I would have to either become a paid intern or just, Noah was real honest. She said, I wouldn't be mad if you just left, if you walked away. And I said, well, what is a paid intern? I didn't even know what that meant. And she said, well, that's when we cover your transportation costs, your food, and all of that. And we give you that in a check, like the total of that for the 2 weeks that, So I'm in Los Angeles, man. Had never been to LA in my life. Didn't know anybody besides the buddy that you mentioned that sent me off at the time and told me, he told me he's the one that actually talked me into considering LA, but it was the Alcoholics manager or road manager. His name is Anthony Andrews. He's known as Izai. Me and him we became tighter than the group, actually, he and I. And he was the one that said, man, if you move to LA, man, I can get you a job at Loud. My girl Noah needs some help. I mean, he didn't say my girl. He said a friend of mine named Noah needs some help. Because I thought Noah was a guy. I didn't know everybody. And Noah laughed about that when we spoke. She said, everybody thinks she's a guy when you first get on until you realize, whoa. I'm like, okay. But anyway, because Noah Ochi is a woman. And so that offer for that record label deal made me throw everything in my trunk and just suddenly just leave Jackson, and I had a hookup with a buddy pass through one of my a brother named his nickname was Groove. We called, his nickname was Groove in college. Groove got me that plane ticket on Southwest and got me out to LA, man. And when I got there, my boy had lied to me and told me we was gonna stay together. It turns out he living with his girlfriend and their kids, and he wasn't going anywhere. So that's how I ended up in that bootleg hostel. I learned that's one of the places they call a hostel, where it's like you got a room like a dorm room, but everybody shares the bathroom that's on your floor like a dorm. It was the craziest experience. But fast forward, like getting to what you were saying. So yeah, so they told me I had 3 months. 3 months in, they told me they couldn't pay me, but make me a paid intern and not a full-time employee. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm 3 months in. I'm having the time of my life, learning more than I've ever learned, experiencing. I'm meeting. I didn't met all the members of the Wu-Tang Clan. My guys was the Alcoholics. They sliding through every now and then, showing love because we built a friendship years before I was there. I'm meeting like Boots from a group called The Cool, because he would always hang out up there. I'm meeting all of the players, this DJ, she's a DJ now, Mona Lisa, but Mona Lisa was a heavy figurehead in this whole music. And I'm cool. I'm just building my repertoire. I'm loving it. So I like I said, and I'm afraid to leave. So I was like, okay, you know what? Crazy me. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take this paid intern check and I'm staying in LA because I know it's gonna work out. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna work out for me. And I do it. I stay for 7, 8 more months, 9 more months, you know what I'm saying? And now that I make it to a year, 11 months to a year, and then I get pulled in the office again and I say, okay, now we really going over budget, because at this point, the demands for that album, still Only Built for Cuban Links, which a lot was spent on that record. Man, we got to let a few people go. And it was a girl, I'll never forget, who got hired after me as the receptionist. They let her go and they said, we can't pay you nothing. So I had a hard decision. Do I stay here and work for nothing, like for real intern now, not even a paid intern?
Yeah.
Or do I leave? And Noah, she felt so bad. She worked so hard that she turned me on to somebody that I'm not even sure if I talked about this in the book, but Delicious Vinyl. She had a friend at Delicious Vinyl. And is that in the book? I'm not even sure
It
if
is.
that's in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Okay, I did
Because
good then.
I'm such a huge Farside fan. And so
Right.
when you talked about Delicious Vinyl, for me, I was like, oh, because the cool thing here in this whole thing too, Ice, is that, and I love your attitude because I think of it as gleaning, right? So you were gleaning little things from every situation. You learned how to be able to put press kits together. You learned how to, like all the DJs at this time were looking to you bring them artists. Artists were looking for you to take it to the DJs. So you were the conduit and you were making all those relationships. And that's the reason why everyone freaked out at Pappy and Harriet's the other night last week when we met. And they're all like, Olskool's in the house, Olskool's in the house. And I'm just looking around. I'm like, where the hell is Olskool?
Like, who is this dude?
But talk to me too about this gleaning part and the bravado that it takes to, number one, be in hip hop itself, but then to transfer into the business side of it. But I think that a lot of it came from the story that you talked about in Chicago, where you and your buddy were walking through and a guy approached you and rap battled you. And it reminded me of Eminem when there wasn't anything that came out on the other side, but you made a decision at that point.
Yeah, man, that dude, that's funny. That's so funny. That dude, man, he turned around and smashed me. And I was a young rapper then, and he heard me kicking my rhymes, and he was a little in front of her, and he just turned around and just came at me. And I froze up, and one of my buddies, man, he was like, "What you doing, Gree? Get him, Gree, get him." And I just stood frozen looking at that dude because I just didn't even know what to do. I forgot all my raps. He just came so aggressive, like LL Cool J in that scene in Crush Groove when he was like, the audition's over. He was like, box, and just rapped anyway. That's how he did me. He turned around like box, and he just killed me. And I learned from that to never always stay prepared. And I'll fast forward and get back to Loud. And that's what it was. I felt like you're not going to ever shut me down. I'm going to figure out a way to get through this and just stay prepared. And that's the whole I refuse to quit mantra. You know what I mean? And so, I wanted to speak on this because I feel like people should hear it. At the time in publicity, we had this thing called, in music, we had this thing called record pools. And in publicity, we serviced these record pools with the records that the label has, and they called them pieces. Every album was called a piece. So if a head of a record pool says he has 100 DJs, so he needs 200 pieces, that just means 200 pieces of vinyl. And because every DJ would get 2 records, so if a head of a record pool served 25, he needed 50 pieces. So Noah, and this is where I credit Noah and give her so much props, Noah Ochi, although somebody else would say, oh man, you was just doing she was putting you to work. No, man, she allowed me to experience this, and I learned how to do this and build these relationships because I had to service these record pools. So they would talk to me, and back then they used to get a little sheet that's stapled together, and they used to have to tell us how the club was responding to it. Each DJ would have to fill out this little questionnaire about how's the record penetrating, how's the club responding to it, what do you think of the record, is the BPMs cool? All of this stuff is how they would bring it back to artists at the label and say, okay, you're doing like this in the club, but you're not really resonating with the people because your story is da-da-da. So they used to actually have questionnaires the DJs would fill out, so we would learn this information. So because of that and me talking to them for that year, I built a relationship with these record pool people to the point that they know my name, and every time they would come to town, they say, man, Greg, I want to meet you, man. When I come to town, we gonna meet. And they will all come by Loud. And it's official. They come by Loud. They see me. I'm at my desk. I'm in the office. Wu-Tang. Look, Wu-Tang used to do their interviews at my phone. Because in the little publicity section, I would get up out my desk and let like RZA and Method and all of them crowd around the phone and do what they used to call phoners, because the interviews used to be, sometime by phone, and they just put it on a speaker. And man, they used to do that. So I got to be around all of this stuff and actually work these things. So that is how I was so successful with the Abstract Mindstate run, and later with the Kanye run, in terms of breaking him. You know what I mean? Breaking his music, or getting it to the DJs, I should say.
Before we leave the loud part, it's a cardinal sin when you're working in the capacity
I know
that you
what you're about
were.
to say. Yeah,
Right?
because you did mention about being humble. I'm sorry, excuse me cutting you off, but about being humble. Yes, I had to play this dual role. The whole time I was there, I hid the fact that I was a rapper or I was an artist or anything, because back then, Kelly, you were a bugaboo. That was a no-no. You couldn't. Now things different, but then to say you're a rapper but you work at the record label, oh man, they would throw you out the door. Like, so I had to hide that I was an artist the whole time I was there.
But there was a moment where you actually said something, and then here's another, almost like, wow, we're going to the top of the mountain, and then the rug gets pulled out again. Tell us that one. Tell me that one.
So what ended up happening is a sister by the name of Tasha Smith, that was my girl. She was the head of video promotions. So it's the end of the day at Loud Records, and I started wanting to play my crew and my music and all of that stuff. And I thought I was in the office by myself, because Tasha was so quiet in the back, because the Loud Records wasn't big, but it had it was kind of long. It wasn't big. It wasn't a wide. It was, she was in the back there. I thought I was in the office by myself, man. And I started playing our music on the radio while I'm waiting for my buddy to pick me up so we can, head home and head back to the house. And man, I'm in there playing, and out of nowhere, the quietness, I heard somebody say, yo, and man, I jumped. I was so scared, because I was like, oh, and Tasha's like, what's, I was like, my bad, I thought I was in here by myself. She was like, no, but what is that you playing? And I got quiet, because I'm like, do I tell her that's my group, or do I lie? Like, what do I do? So I just kind of look at her. She was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I was like, and I was just like, man, I said, okay, I was real cool with Tasha, so I felt like maybe I can just tell her, And I said, well, Tasha, that's my group. And she started laughing. And it was so funny. She like literally started laughing, like, boy, get out of here. Like, who is that? I'm for real. Who is the artist? Who is this I'm listening to? I said, no, Tasha, seriously, this is my group. That's me and my partner. I rap with a girl. She was like, man, get out of here. She was like, Greg, you playing with me? And I was like, no. She was like, dude, I've been listening to this so long. Y'all, this is so dope. You got to let Steve Rifkin hear this. And I was like, no, you can't do that. I was like, you're gonna make me lose my job. Don't do that. I'm not ready to. And she was like, no. She was like, no, it's cool. I'm telling you, I'm cool. She was like, I'm cool with Steve. Don't worry about that part. Da da da. And I ain't gonna lie, I left that day nervous, like, man, this might be my last day at Loud, because I know she gonna tell Steve, and she gonna be like, what that dude rap, man, if he don't get out of here. But Steve, she whatever she said to Steve, I wasn't around for that part. All I know is Steve called me in his office, and he had my press kit, because I let Tasha get a hold to it. And he said he had it on his desk, and he tapped on it. He was like, this is you. And in my head, I'm like, oh man, what is it? I was like, yeah, that's me, He was like, man, like, I listened to it because Tasha was really persistent about how good you are and how good. He said, I listened to it. It is good. He said, I want to set you up a meeting with my A&R. His name is Scott Free. And because it was Scott Free and Matt Life in the New York office, and they were the ears. They was the dudes that signed everybody. Everybody on Loud, they got signed was those two guys. And so he was like, Scott is coming to town in a few days. I want you all to sit down. I want you to take a meeting with him and see what we got here. Because if you got something, man, man, maybe you'll be on Loud. And I was like, oh, this didn't go like I thought. I thought I was about to get kicked out of here. But Steve is actually considering me for a record deal, right? My group. So fast forward, Scott Free came. And he like, yo, what's up, man? I've been hearing things about you, man. They talking about you. I was like, yeah, I was still trying to downplay it, because I was more concerned with not losing this job, right? And we listened to the stuff, man. And this dude sat with me and listened to every song on the demo. and it may have been about 5 songs on the demo. He listened top to bottom every song. He was asking me questions throughout it, complimenting my producer, everything. And he was like, dude, I really like this. And then he said, look, I'm in town. I'm supposed to be connecting with Tash from the Alcoholics. We running around. Man, is this my press kit? He looked at it, he says, this mine? Is this mine right here? I said, yeah, that's you right there. He's like, all right, let me take this back to New York with me. Man, we gonna talk. And I left out of there feeling like, when I was sitting in class, I left out of there like, oh yeah, like, okay. I done came to Loud to work a job and learn the ins and outs of the business, and I done got a record deal, right? This in my head, I'm thinking this. Man, Scott got back to New York. Scott Free got back to New York. And I didn't hear from him. And, I'm a very patient guy. And I work on both sides. So I'm an artist, but I'm a businessman that's an artist. So I'm saying I'm going to give him a week or so to let him get settled. I'm not going to just be on him like that. But I didn't hear nothing from him. So I gave him a call. And I usually, Kelly, I would call the Loud office because I'm calling from what you call the sister office. Everybody takes your call when you're calling from the other Loud office. But when I told him it was me, they would be like, okay, and let me transfer you. And when they transfer me to him, he wouldn't answer. And then I wait another week and a half, try again, because I would put adequate space so I wouldn't be a bugaboo. I was trying to play cool so I wouldn't call the next day. I wait like a week and a half, and I call again. He wouldn't answer. They'll transfer me to him. He wouldn't answer. Because it wouldn't be him to answer. It's always the receptionist, and they transfer you to them. And I was like, all right, I try again. Man, after 3 times, I got this rule. I call you. That's with women. That's with everything. If I call you 3 times, I'm done after that. It's like 3 strikes you out. I use baseball. You know what I'm saying? That's with the ladies and everything. If I call you 3 times and no call back or nothing, I'm just done. And there went that whole situation. Nothing came out of that. Except for me eventually having to lead Loud, because when they told me I couldn't, get paid at all, that's when Noah started trying to hook me up with her girl at Delicious Vinyl, who actually hired me. But she said I couldn't start to January, and it was the end. And I all I had to do was hang in 1 more month. But my situation at my buddy's crib was so volatile, it was so bad with him and his girlfriend and the craziness they had going on that she was projecting onto me that I just couldn't take another month at that house. So at that point, when I talked to my people at my old producer of a show that I used to host, a video show I used to host, and he told me that he had interest in the Real Network picking up the show, and I should come back to Jackson with, I left. I was like, I'm out of here, because I still had the plane ticket. I still had my return flight from the Buddy Pass, So I was able to get out of there, and I ended up leaving LA, man. And that was my stint at Loud Records. I was there just on the cusp of a year,
Well, and when you got to Jackson, this was amazing because I got to the point and I was reading through and I was like, okay, cool. So now he's going to go back to Jackson. He's going to be the host of this video show. And now the planes, the champagne, the touring, it's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to tell us the reality of that situation and how quickly this one went.
Man, I got back to Jackson. This one is pretty fast. I got back to Jackson. The guy's, his name was Mr. Wright, Vincent Wright. I co-created the show with him. At this point, I became a co-producer because a lot of the things that was happening, I was coming up with, and he was very fair. He was very fair. I'll just say it like that. And we had an interest in, because the only show that was on TV that was a Caribbean-based show was Rachel. It was a island girl named Rachel that hosted something on BET. I think it was called Caribbean Rhythms or something like that. And I had the locks and everything, and we played like reggae and world artists and all that. It was a world music show. It wasn't like hip hop, but I was the host, and I was a natural, they were saying. And man, this show was about to get had interest from major networks. So one of the main episodes that was going to be our pilot episode was when I landed in New Orleans They told me to don't go to Jackson, land in New Orleans, and ride back to Jackson with us because we're going to be you're going to be interviewing Ziggy Marley and the Melody Makers at the House of Blues. And I was like, what? So anyway, fast forward, I interview Ziggy and the Melody Makers. We get back, we chopping that episode up, trying to edit. And what ended up happening was Mr. Wright, it was an issue because that show initially started at Jackson State. So Jackson State's television, which was my senior year, was when Jackson State had started WJTV. It was new. But that show started under that moniker. Well, it turns out that he couldn't take the show because Jackson State owned it. So when we was trying to take the show to a real level, he felt like, man, I produced it, I created it. Me and Ice-Gre, and they was like, nah, and they started giving him pushback on it, and he started fighting with Jackson State. We never was able to get the pilot episode to the people who was interested. It wasn't BET. It may have been MTV. Because it was a competing network. It probably was MTV, I believe it was. And we couldn't send them the tape. Mr. Wright ended up fighting with them so much till it made him actually sick. He got hospitalized and all of that went. I came back to Jackson thinking I'm coming there to do this show and everything is about to go up again. Because mind you, Kelly, if you notice in everything I'm sharing with you, I'm not really caring how it happens. I just want to be a part of something great. I don't care if it's my group, if it's me hosting a video show, if it's me becoming like the star in publicity at Loud Records. I just wanted to be a part of something great. Man, that thing fell to the floor. And there I was starting over again. And now I'm back in Jackson, Mississippi. And that wasn't my plan to just be in Jackson. I had to get out of there. It was not long after that I got out of there.
And you got back to Chicago.
Yeah.
Take me to this, because this was hilarious. As I was reading it, I don't know that you meant it to be hilarious, but you were working at First Data. And the manager comes to you, and I'm picturing this in my head, because this is one of the most stereotypical things at that time, because hip hop was just starting to, like if you had hip hop on a cereal commercial, people were like, hey, and they were trying to do hip hop.
Right, yep.
So the manager comes to you and says, are there any rappers that work here? And because we need to get the morale in our culture better, but this creates an unbelievable opportunity. Take me to First Data.
Yeah. So First Data. And actually, let me take it a little higher. The person that came to me was the director of operations, not the manager. She was the director of operations. She was the top head person, and she told the managers to check. So when you I worked at a collection agency. So this is, imagine this building is huge. It's 300 people on the phones all day in cubicles in a huge building. And she wanted to know, the director of operations put it out to all her managers to check the floor to see if we have any rappers on the floor. And the floor just meant the cubicles where everybody is working on all these phones. And at that time, to show you how we couldn't say anything like that now, because everybody in the place would be a rapper, right? Well, back then, am I right? Everybody in the office would be a rapper if that was today. But even the last 20 years. Then, out of about 200 people, it was 3 rappers in the entire building. It was me, this 2 other brothers, and we met with the director of operations, and she explained what you just said. She's trying to boost morale because the numbers are low on the phones, and she want to use this little like gimmicky promotion to boost morale to get everybody excited again, so they can get on the phones and really pull this money. And the idea was for us, the 3 rappers, to teach all. She picked a certain group of managers for us to teach them a rap that's related to the job, though.
Hold on, eyes. This because I can imagine you go through all these things, right? You've got
Yep.
from the stew pot stowaways to the Jackson State stuff, Loud Records.
Right.
You come back, you're going to be the host of a show on MTV or BET, and then reality hits. I got to go get a job. Then you get the job, but in your mind, you're still a dreamer. You have
Right.
Abstract Mindstate. You have all these things. You know how to be able to
Yep.
create a press kit. And then this lady comes and says, "Teach my managers a rap."
How to rap.
Take me
How to
there.
rap.
Take me there.
Man, so we making up these raps. We writing these raps for these managers so they can use all the jargon and terminology that's that's conducive for the work environment, right? It's all stuff that has to do with collections. And so us the three guys, we did it. We taught these managers, and the whole reason we did it, Kelly, was just to be off the phone so we don't have to work. Because imagine we would come to work and we don't get on the phones. We go to a room with these managers for the next hour, so we off the phones. We just wanted to be off the phones, not working, and we were still getting paid for not being on the phones, So,
do you remember the raps? Do you remember a
oh
bar?
man, no.
Give me one. No, Ice. You remember it and you just don't want to say it. That's what it is.
I promise I don't. If I did, I'd love to say it. But
How
I
are you
remember
going to turn cultural things in as far as cultural in a business? How are you going to turn morale into help me? You got to remember at least one bar.
So she was creative. She had them what you call it, the grocery store baskets. She had she would have a manager pushing another manager in a grocery store basket. They're going through the aisles of the office where we on the phones, throwing candy and saying these raps they got lights and everything. She got strobe lights and colored lights and balloon. She turned the floor into a party. Wow. And the funniest part for everybody was seeing their manager saying trying to say this rap, and that made everybody have such a good time that it actually worked. They got after this little morale boosting thing, the company got the highest numbers that they had in years. But for me, what I did was, here we go, the businessman kicked in. So I'm saying, man, we're sitting in the director of operations office. I said, okay, these guys, I don't know how serious they take their craft. But I told her when everybody, I let the first two guys walk out and I kind of pushed the door behind them. And I said, hey, listen, her name was Latina Cunningham. I said, hey, listen, Latina, I want you to listen to my real music. I know what I just did for you and for these managers, but I said, I want you to listen to my group. This is my real rap. And she said, really? She's like, well, what you want me to listen to it for? I'm not into rap. But I said, I just want you to hear it, just to hear what I really do. And bottom line is, I think I say in the book, I said, I thought I was in trouble, man, it wasn't right away. She called me back in the office probably a week later or something like that. And, everybody, it was almost like being in school because it was so many people worked at that office. It was like a bunch of bad kids. Next thing I know, the manager walks up to me and said, Latina want to see you in the office. And everybody Greg in trouble. Ooh, you done got in trouble. And the reason they were joking and saying I was in trouble is because I worked at a collection agency and we on the phone and we're able to call anywhere in the world to collect on these credit cards. So Kelly, I used to be on the phone talking to New York and LA trying to get record deals. I would be calling magazines to get write-ups or follow up on packages I sent. I used to use their fax machines to send stuff to record labels and magazines. I used to use the copy machine to make copies for my press kits and flyers for stuff I was doing after work. So I got scared because I thought, man, did I leave something on a Xerox machine or did I get caught? Because they're collection agencies, they can patch in to listen to how you're handling your calls. So I thought she may have patched in and caught me talking to somebody in New York or LA, handling my own business. So I was like, I'm about to get fired. This is what I'm thinking. I'm about to get fired from this job. So I go downstairs and I looked at Latina and she looked at me and I said, yeah. And then she said, okay. She said, and she pulls my CD out and holds it up. And now I'm a little confused because I'm not even thinking about I gave you this CD to listen to because I'm nervous thinking I'm about to get fired. And so she says, hey, I listened to this. She said, this is really good. I said, oh, thank you. So now I'm a little relieved because I said, okay, I don't think this is about me getting fired at this point, you know. And she said, this is really good. She said, what does it take? How come y'all not out there like the other stuff I'm hearing? Like, what does it take to get this out there? And I said, man, it takes money. And she looked at me and said, is that all? And yo, when she said, is that all? You know, the story goes from there. Let's just say she became my first investor. And later she became my business partner in an entertainment company. And we did major things together, you know.
Well, and at this point, we think, and again, as I'm reading through, I'm like, damn, okay, cool. Breath of fresh air. Everything's rolling. I'm so excited for Ice. He's finally the planes, the caviar, the champagne. And then MTV has a contest with Lisa Left Eye Lopes, and you guys go.
Man.
And this is the launching pad. This is the space shuttle. This is where Ice
Yes.
goes to not only the moon, but goes to Mars and then creates his
Yes.
own universe. Help me with this one.
Yes. Okay, so here's the crazy part about that one. I'm gonna say this, and I don't know if I ever even said this or put this out there like that, but I didn't know these contests that are on TV, they already know who the winner is because they want the best of the best. They want you to represent their brand. So during the what do you call it? During the audition period, they can already tell who's like, okay, this is our winner. They already know. So our manager again, Armis Q, my brother Q, Armis, who was our manager, Armis Moncure, he had sent our package in because we had heard about this contest for something called the Cut, and Left Eye was hosting it, you know, from TLC, was hosting this thing, was going to be the host of this thing, and we sent our press kit in, and they were so impressed by our it was the last demo. It wasn't a demo, it was our first EP release, which was called The Last Demo, the EP. It was actually a real CD, and it was just called The Last Demo. That was the title of it. Anyway, man, we sent that thing in to the producers at MTV. They end up I didn't even, man, Q end up calling me saying, man, they want y'all to come down and audition for the Cut. I thought he was joking. He was like, no, I'm not lying. I'll get you on the phone with him if you don't believe me. I said, okay. So Q gets me on a 3-way call with the guy with the MTV. And they like, yeah, man, this is an amazing CD. Like, you guys are incredible. That male-female tandem, this is wow. We never seen this before. Y'all sound great. Y'all production is this, that, and the third. And then he said, that I never forget, they talked to us for a while. But I remember at the end of the conversation, they said, listen, we're not supposed to say this, but I just can't help it. We just going to say it. If y'all is half as good as this music, as y'all half as good as this CD that y'all sent us, y'all going to be the winners of the Cut. And I was like, oh, wow, right? Okay. So they already chose us as like, we want y'all to represent, you know, the win, you know, we want you that winning spot. Y'all are the group based on y'all music. We go down there, man, to MTV. And we auditioned, man. We meeting all of the people in the room, and then it was our time to go in. Now, we had never done an audition on this level or anything like this. And I can admit, and you know, that the room was very cold. It was like a table. It kind of looked like, you know, LL when he came in there on Crush Groove, and they were just all sitting with a table, you know, behind the table. Everybody was sitting in a row and just looking at you. And they just kind of like, all right, you ready? Cue up the music, go. And they just look at you with the stone face like we playing poker, and you just supposed to rap your head off. And man, of course, so they said go, and your boy right here, I turned instantly into LL Cool J. I'm jumping on stuff. I'm going crazy. And I noticed while I'm rapping, my partner wasn't filling in, you know, doing the fill-ins. We call them fill-ins when she jump in and out of my, you know, the words of my rap to kind of show that that cohesiveness and like kind of, you know, double up on my every other word. She wasn't doing it. And well, no, before that, she started to rap. And she was so nervous, she was looking down at her feet, and they stopped the music and said, hey, could you when you're performing, could you look at us, address us as the audience? And I'm looking like, oh man, like that they actually, that they actually just stop us because we Abstract Mindstate. We were the kings and queen. We was the king and queen of live performance in Chicago. So I couldn't believe they had to say something to EP. They was like, so okay, we let that go. They started the music again. And then they stopped it again and say, okay, you still not really looking at us. And blah, blah. I was like, oh man, what's going on? Like, so they had to stop us twice. And then she got through it. And I was like, then I'm rapping and she wasn't filling in with me. So when the audition was over, I knew in my heart that was like the worst audition we ever had. I knew it. I was like, there's no way that we're going to get through this. So I get outside, I'm upset. We get outside the room. I said, man, what happened? I'm like, you wasn't filling in with me. You was looking down. They had to stop our music twice. What's going on? And she made a bunch of excuses up, but it wasn't until we was on the airplane going back and we wasn't saying anything to each other. Nobody was talking. I definitely had an attitude, and out of the quietness and darkness, because the plane wasn't even. You ever rode an airplane where it's not so? It's not. You ever rode on a plane where they don't really have that many people on there, so everybody can get a whole seat to them, a whole row of seats to themselves? That's how this flight was. It wasn't a full flight, so everybody could kind of like get a whole row. So I was on a row by myself. She was in a row on the other side by herself. And out of the darkness, I heard her say, I was scared.
Wow.
And I sat up and I said, what did you just say? She was like, I was scared. She was like, Gree, that room was so cold, man. I was just nervous. And I was like, why didn't you say that to me? Why did you lie and say, she made up a bunch of excuses instead of just telling me she was scared. Because I felt like I could have took it better if she'd have just told me she was scared versus making up like, oh no, I did this, I did that. I wasn't doing that. They just said, and I'm like, nope, that's not, no. So that opportunity went out the window. And I'm gonna tell you what's funny about that opportunity. The winners of the group that won was a male, female. They didn't rap. It was a dude. The girl was the rapper and the guy did reggae. He like did some dance hall, like some reggae type stuff. And I remember when I looked at them when they won, I said, man, they look like us, but that's not us. You know what I'm saying? That's who the winners was. I was so broken over that.
Well, I would think, and again, as I went through the book, you would think within your story, okay, here you have that. The next contest you're gonna win. You go to Def Jam, and you have it in the bag. To have Brooklyn rocking with someone from Chicago, especially in a hip hop crowd,
Yeah.
I want to congratulate you on that.
Right.
But you had it, and then they let you know of the winner, and the winner's not you. But the winner was actually signed, which you're not allowed to be signed.
Right.
They used profanity, and they weren't allowed to use profanity. And then when did they actually flip it? And
right. So this is what happened. It was the rules of the contest was not that you couldn't be signed. You couldn't be signed. The group wasn't signed, but you couldn't be associated with a signed artist. They brought a signed artist on stage with them. It was an artist that was associated with Master Ace. His name was Lord Digger, and he was signed to like Master. He had a record deal at the time, and you wasn't supposed to curse, and you only had your performance had to stay within 4 or 5 minutes or something like that. And they went way over time because they kept having false starts. Like it was so many of them up there. They wasn't like Wu-Tang, real organized 7 deep. They was about 7 deep and they was super unorganized. And they got up there and they hollering over each other, not listening, trying to do that whole, bravado, that whole overly New York bravado thing on stage. And they missed their cue. And then they had to say, sound man, stop that. Yo, sound man, run that back. Sound man, run that back. And then the sound man ran it back. And then they did it again and missed their cue. And they was like, yo, F that sound man. Yo, run that again. And so me and EP in the audience, after we just performed and won the crowd over and we had a perfect show, killed them. Bill Bellamy was the host of the event. He even said, which you could see it, I have on YouTube on one of those clips for our documentary, you can see the clip when Bill Bellamy introducing us, because that's in it. But he literally said, man, it's going to be hard to come after them. Like, because he was like, they killed it. Like we was getting all the props. New York was showing us love. Hammerstein Ballroom, sponsored by Def Jam. It was called the Salem Orb E Nationwide Talent Competition. and Salem cigarettes at that. But anyway, man, the group did broke all the rules. They introduced the signed artist they had on stage. They introduced him to the audience. Yo, give it up for Lord Digger, and And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then they said, and then they did all the cursing, and then they went they performance was about 8 minutes long. They was up there so long. Well, the thing was over, and we knew we had it in the bag. At least, we was like, they broke all the rules. They wasn't as good as us. We got it. And man, they said the winner for music is, and they said that group. But what I left out was every time the group started losing the audience, because the audience was not really rocking with them, because they wasn't really good, to be honest. Every time they were like, yo, where Brooklyn at? That's a New York thing to do. Is Brooklyn in the house? Where Brooklyn? And man, Brooklyn was in the house. Brooklyn is in the house wherever you are in the world. Brooklyn is in the house. And they was like, buck, 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 buck. They was doing that, buck, 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 and all that. Like Brooklyn was crazy in the house. So that was like their little thing. Every time they lose the crowd, they'd be like, where Brooklyn at? Brooklyn, make some noise, Brooklyn. And Brooklyn start, whoa, 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 and that thing. And it was just kind of like, oh, come on, y'all. Like, y'all didn't really kill it at all. So they gave it to them. So we left New York upset. Russell Simmons had introduced himself to me, told me to take his phone number. He's like, I really like y'all. I thought we was about to get signed to Def Jam, because Russell was like, yo, y'all were really impressive. I like y'all. He was like, the male-female thing, I haven't seen that. That's incredible. Like, give me a call. Gave me his phone number, introduced me to Kimora Lee at the time. He was like, this is my wife, Kimora. I was like, yeah, I know exactly who she is. How you doing? You know what I'm saying? Because he was introducing me like I don't know like, man, your wife is as popular as you. Of course I know who she is. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, no, he was just real humble and cool like that. But man,
then you get back to Chicago.
We get back to Chicago. Yeah, we got back to Chicago. Well. And we just walked away from it so mad, knowing we knew we got cheated. And then my cousin Lee Majors, our manager, because him and Armis, they used to, they had came together as a team. Lee was a part of the management team. Him and Armis was a management team for us. Man, Lee called me and said, "You're not gonna believe this." I said, "What?" He said, "Man, I just got a letter from Salem Cigarettes about the contest. They reversed the decision and said we the winners." I said, "Man, what?" And you would think I'd have been happy, but I was upset because I grabbed that piece of paper and it was like, after careful deliberation, we've decided that, a lot of rules were broken. And it was a unanimous decision that we overturned the winner, and you guys are crowned the winners of the Salem Orb Nationwide Talent Search or whatever competition, whatever. And I was like, man, I was so mad because we didn't walk off that stage at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York, the winners. And I knew that was going to affect us because the impact it would have had with Russell Simmons and Def Jam, the impact it had, because what happened was, now we finding this out a week later, the press is old news to the press. They're not interested in covering it now. We were supposed to do a photo shoot with Jonathan Mannion, who was like, he was like the man at the time. That couldn't happen. So now they have to give us a reputable or a photographer that's in Chicago, that's closer to us in Chicago. It was a mess. Nothing. It was a total mess. Nothing. Winning was as equal as losing, because the only good part about it was we won all the studio time. We won, and that's how we had enough money. We had enough hours to put on top of our WGCI music seminar win. That was money and some hours we won. So now we won more hours. So now that's how we recorded our first album.
Well, it's amazing too, because through all this, you were preparing, and that's, God preparing you. Like, it's never taking the desire that he puts in your heart and saying, you get it now. He just built
Right.
you like little inch by little inch by little inch. He took you to Loud Records.
Yep.
He taught you the press kit part of it. He taught you the high and low. He taught you the ins and outs of, until the deal is actually signed. And some of them, the investments were signed. I remember reading about that, where they were signed, and then you had to go after them for the rest of the money, which you didn't end up getting anyway.
Yeah.
But then the studio part happens. You're able to record. You're able to do this. Does Common come to the release party? Is that for Abstract Mindstate? Because
Yes,
he
yes,
came, and this was a major one because Common at that time, obviously Common now, but Common at that time was still big. He wasn't as big as he is now, but
yeah,
in
yeah.
Chicago, for Common to show up to your
Oh man, that was super big. Like, and that scene, um, that's the piece that shows up in Genius, the Netflix film by Cootie and Chike, Genius. Uh,
yeah
that clip of when they talk to Common on Genius, that was at our release party. And I mean, and you see us, we're there too. We're standing there too, like
yeah
right with them, and we're all in that scene. But that whole scene took place at our release party, when he showed up there, a sister from a label at the time called 321 Records. Her name was Fiona Bloom. She flew in to sign us. She offered us a deal that day. We had it was a guy named Gravity. He's originally from New York, but he signed. He was the first artist in Chicago that Kanye had production on his record because he was signed to a major. He was signed to a independent but major. It was a subsidiary of a major, and everybody was there. The bottom line I'm trying to say is everybody who was significant in Chicago hip hop at the time was at our release party,
yeah
including Common. And Common was overly impressed with how we handled ourselves, the way the party turned out. He just thought we was just like, man, everybody felt like, man, Abstract, y'all deserve y'all shot. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? And
Well,
you know how it went.
You get another call, kind of like the LA Loud call. But this call, I don't know if it was a call to you or you made the call, but it was your sister, and your sister said, "Look, I think you need to be here in New York because New York is the mecca of hip hop. There's going to be some great opportunities." And she said, "Don't worry about anything. I got you. I got you all taken care of." Then you get there, and she ain't got you. Take me there.
So the chick you referring to is somebody I grew up with, like a sister.
Okay.
We grew up in the neighborhood together. I have been knowing her since 4th grade. And it got to people, used to say we look alike. So we start just letting them believe it and saying we were brother and sister. And that's how that was. But the strange part about that situation was she wasn't in the music business at all. She was just interested and intrigued by it. She moved to New York because she tried to get a job at Jive Records. And I was the reason she got her job because I was, at the time we were, like I just told you, we was winning all that stuff. So we're in the studio, we're working with Michael Jackson and R. Kelly's engineer in the same studio where they was recording together with, we using his engineer. We big time, we looking major at home. So we were a name that everybody knew coast to coast and even internationally because they was, we was doing write-ups, we was doing interviews with Canadian magazines. We were really hot at this time. And so my sister, I wrote a record, a letter of recommendation, and they called me, Jive Records called me, because I put her on our record at that time that we recorded from all this winning these contests. I put her on our record as an A&R. And I just did all of this just to help her get this job. Like, you know what I'm saying? And, because I was like, yeah, and the bottom line is I helped her get her job. Now she like, yo, you need to come out here. Once she got to New York and saw what it was like, she was like, you will do your thing. You got it. Like you were just saying, she kind of coerced me into coming out there. I got your back. All you got to do is bring your clothes. She literally said, bring your ass and your clothes. That's what she said. That's how she said it. Bring your ass and your clothes. That's all you need. And I wasn't going to come, man. I really wasn't going to come because I felt like, this not, I need to have my own space. But she was like, well, at least just come for 30 days and see how it works out. And I came out there, and that 30 days turned out to be absolutely amazing. It was just like she said, like I made so many connections and so much happened. And I took so many meetings, and there was so much interest that it would have been to my benefit to follow up on all of this by staying out there. So I actually went back home. She didn't want me to leave. She's like, no, just stay, just stay. I said, man, I ain't even got enough clothes and blah, blah, blah. I had all my excuses. I was like, I'm going back. And then she was like, she ended up calling me when I went back and said, hey, look, it's another apartment. It got more space. You will be able to have your own room. You should come on back. and do your thing. You know, you my brother. I know you gonna make it. Think about all the connections you made. And she kind of sold me on it because she was like, man, and I'm like, you right, you know. So I listened to her and came out there. Man, that was the worst thing that ever happened. I got out there. Man, I got out there. That girl she ran so much game on me. First of all, she took my money. You know, she told me I don't have to give her anything. I know you need, you know, in the beginning, you got to get established first, blah, blah, blah. But she tricked me and told me she needed some help with the rent to secure the place that's going to be for me and her. And if I could just front her the money by the time I come out there, she'll just give it back to her. So she told me to give her, and it was half of what the rent was. I gave that to her, man. I get out there and I'm like, yeah, what's up with my money? You know, and she was like, what money? I thought you gave that to me for rent. And I'm like, come on, man. Like she ran, you know, and then she started telling everybody back home that I don't want to help. And, you know, I'm living off of her. She told our families, because, you know, we were really like brothers and sisters. Both our families knew each other. You know, we was tight. Man, she told a whole bunch of lies to both of our families, you know. And the funny thing was, I talked to people in her family and my family, and they both told me that they knew that I wasn't doing that because they say they know her. You know, her own family was like, man, we know her. So we knew you wasn't doing that. But I learned that much later. But man, I was so upset. That went so bad. But I tell you what saved me. That was when, you know, again, that down turned into an up because of the things I was doing with Kanye, just helping him at the time. He asked me to move in with him, and I didn't need to stay with her anymore. So I had a place. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, take me to this moment too, because you're at that point, then you start doing everything from business managing, personal assistant. You're running things for Kanye at the time because,
Yeah.
and you're utilizing all the things from Stew Pot to, you know,
Yep.
Freak Nick in '94, the lessons that you learned
Yep.
with David
To
Banner,
Loud
with
Records, everything.
loud records,
Yeah.
all the ups, the downs, the music, the MTV debacle,
Yep.
right? That
Yep.
you have. And
Yep.
then Jam Master Jay gets killed and Kanye has an accident. Take me there.
Yeah. So after all of that work, like you said, oh man, I never forget that day going back to Chicago. And Jam Master Jay died. It was such a gloomy. That day was gloomy, but it was like this dark cloud over New York City, and it felt real calm. I was staying with a girlfriend of mine at the time who lived in the Bronx. She lived in White Plains, and 225th. I remember that. And you know, I used to catch I think it was a 1 or the 2 train all the way there from Brooklyn or something like that. And uh, so I was going back home. You know, this is before, you know, I was going back home, and this was in between me, Brooklyn, and Kanye. You know, I was going back home. I just started staying with Ye. Now he out in LA, and he'd had this accident and almost killed himself. And I finds this out. Cootie and them gives me the heads up. They almost forgot to tell me because I'm with this girlfriend out in the Bronx. So I'm not in Brooklyn with everybody kicking it like we used to. So he tells me like a day or two later, like, oh, Gree, I forgot to tell you, Ice-Gre, man, Ye was in a really bad car accident. I'm like, what? You know, and I was like, oh man. So I end up getting in the car. My girl ended up packing my stuff up, and we left. Well, actually, I was staying with her. I was still hanging in New York, but then her cousin pulled a move on her that she was subletting from. She was subletting her cousin's apartment, and her cousin decided, like out the blue, without any warning, that she want her place back. So now I'm staying with her because my sister friend and played me, and I didn't have to get out of her house because me and her then got into an argument, and she threatened to call the police on me. And at that point, I knew our friendship was over. When she threatened to call the police on me if I don't leave her crib, I was like, at that point, we'll never be cool again, you know. So I end up my girlfriend at the time, she came over out of anger of how my sister friend played me, grabbed all my stuff, threw it in her car, and said, come on, you can just stay with me in the Bronx. And then her cousin played her. Like it couldn't have been nothing but a couple of weeks into my stay with her, and then her cousin played her like, I want my place back out of the blue. So we had to just go back to Chicago. So that was the day that Jam Master Jay got killed, and we was on our way back to Chicago driving, you know. And when I got back home, I called Kanye. And it was so funny because his mouth was wired shut. He was still in the hospital. And I was like, man, I was all concerned. I was like, man, you good? And he like, yeah, man, you know, I'm straight. He talking through the wire. And the first thing he said is, but wait a minute though, I got this song. And he started telling me about Through the Wire and how he gonna actually record it while his mouth is wired shut. And this sounds so crazy at the time because I'm like, dude, you almost died. Why are you talking about this song? He was serious. And so he was like, so he, you know, over time or whatever, while he was out in LA, he's like, yeah, I'm staying in the hotel. Rockefeller got me, you know, in the hotel or whatever. I said, man, do you need me out there with you? And he was like, well, I'm in LA. You will come to LA? I said, bro, I lived in LA before. You know, he was like, oh, that's right. And then I said, also, didn't I say I was going to stick with you until you became a star? And he said, yeah. I said, are you a star yet? He said, no. I said, well, what you think? And he started laughing. Like, okay. He like, damn, okay. Okay. And he said, well, when you want to come out here? And I said, tomorrow. And he started laughing, but I was serious, Kelly. I was serious. And I just went with him like, ha, ha, ha. I'm on the phone like, ha, ha, but I'm serious. Like, because he was like, I'll get you a ticket. I'll fly you out if you're going. Because he wanted to continue the run that me and him was on. We was really doing a lot, you know, together. And I said, and I was serious. He said, well, I'll fly you out, you know, by next week. And, you know, he ended up flying me out like about a week later. And then this whole LA thing started with us. And that's when I really kicked in with all of the stuff with Loud, because I put his first press kit together, you know, and once his mouth healed, we would go back to New York. And in New York, I remember I wrote his first bio and he was tripping out when he read it like, man, this sounds like a real bio. I was like, it is a real bio, bro. I've been writing bios for years. Plus I worked in publicity. Like that's, you know, yes. Like, and so, yeah, man. And like I say in the book, one of my proudest moments, and I smile thinking about it today, is when Cootie did the video for Through the Wire, him and Chike, when Cootie shot that footage and him and Chike worked that out to get the video for Through the Wire done, it was a combination of Cootie's visuals and what I was doing behind the scenes with sending sending press kits to publications, getting him write-ups, sending the 12 inches, which I was the one told him he need 12 inches. And he would just trust me and give me the money. He would always ask me to explain why I needed these things. And I would explain what I'm doing and what it does for him. And he'd be like, okay. And he'll give me his credit card, his debit card, and tell me to go get the money out the ATM, you know. And I would get the money, and I was getting wax. I'm the one got his wax pressed because I knew where to go. I dealt with the people already for Abstract, you know. And, you know, because pretty much what he told me, he said, if you do for me what you did for Abstract Mindstate, I'll be the biggest thing in hip hop. That was his words to me. So I did all of this stuff, man. And I had Devo, his cousin, Devo Springsteen. I never forget, we was all in Westwood and Kinko's making these press kits. And I remember it was funny because at the time, Devo was like, man, what are we doing? He was like, what is this? You know, and I was like, just trust me, just make these copies. I'm just giving everybody assignments, you know. I used to tell, you know, even you know, all of the team that was around, I was giving everybody their assignments. So the bottom line is the combination of that visual that Cootie and Chike did, coupled with the work that I was doing, getting him pressed and his music played, it started creating a groundswell for him, which led to Dame offering him a deal. And you know, half of that was kind of selfish. Him getting offered a deal was selfish anyway, because they just really wanted to keep his music or his beats over at Rockefeller. So half of it was there. You actually are hot and you do have interest, and I'm starting to see stuff on you. But at the same time, you're an incredible producer and we want to keep these beats at Rockefeller. So Dane was smart enough to say, hey, if it takes giving you a deal to keep you over here with us, that's what he did. And they didn't realize what they had got, because you know, ultimately you saw what ended up happening, you know, with his career after that. We ain't even got to, you know, talk about him besides that. You saw what happened with that. But yeah, so and so once again, I you know, put my life on the back burner, and I saw an opportunity to be a part of something great, because that's the thing that kept coming up in my life. I wasn't so stuck on it being me, but just me being a part of something great.
It's such an incredible, you know, journey. And I know the journey ain't done. I mean, it's not done. It's still continuing. I mean, with you, with Honest Management, with G2 Productions. But it's such a testament, Ice, that you take, and I know I've said it before, but I want to reemphasize it, that when you hit a wall or there's bad circumstances or there's a valley, you in the valley took the time to rest, took the time to plant, and you kept planting seeds. And then these seeds are continuing to come into fruition.
Yeah, to
right?
manifest. Yes.
But not at the time that you want it. How hard is it? How hard is it, Ice, as a dreamer, to plant and not see an oak tree tomorrow?
Yeah, man. It's I'll say for some, it's probably nerve-wracking for some. For me, this may sound, I'm not trying to sound like I'm not trying to sound like larger than life or anything, or better than anybody. But for me, my level of patience and faith, faith and belief is stronger than most people I know. So these moments that you're speaking of, like, man, I'm back on the bottom and I got to restart again. Those became par for the course for me. I think I got comfortable in the restart. I got comfortable. I got comfortable meaning I wasn't working. I got comfortable with what would usually be pain for somebody else. It became motivation, or never pleasure, but it became motivation, or, I use it to push myself, or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so all of those down moments was just a little bit of more gas to get my car going, so it became par for the course. Like, okay, I started getting comfortable in the fact that it may not necessarily go like I thought. So just keep going. And that's where the I refuse to quit thing come in. So, I got comfortable being uncomfortable.
Take me to this too, because now I said something the other day, which when you said bars on a comment that I put, because I said that
Right. Bars.
membership gives you privileges and relationships grant you access. The thing that you
Right.
didn't talk about was the relationship with Kanye. And I didn't even know this connection. I didn't even know his connection with John Legend was what it was. But you had exposure to Legend. You had it opened up to Common. It opened up to Slum Village.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that you made something a dream of mine come true, and you don't even know, but I get to tell you now.
Okay.
When I started this podcast, okay, this is 5.5 years ago. Your episode 706.
Oh, wow.
So when I started, everyone asked me, who's your ultimate guest? And I said, it's simple. It's De La Soul. And it just rolled off the tongue because I've been listening to him since '89. I had, I had been reaching out to them since I first started the podcast in 2020. And then Dave passed away, and I've continued to at least twice a week. I send to Paz and I send to DJ Maceo. I send to both of them, and I just send a video and I say, you're my biggest inspiration in hip hop. I want to be able to have you on the podcast at some point, but I'm patient, right? I know you're busy, right?
Right.
But I want to tell you this. I posted something about you the other day. You responded to it, and I looked down my feed, and DJ Maceo followed me on Instagram. So I want to thank you, Ice.
Yeah, that's dope. I saw that. I saw that too. I saw Maceo on there because I don't know if you know this, but De La Soul is my favorite group in hip hop. Like, that's like the Ice. If you ever ask EP, anybody who knows me, my partner in rhyme, EP definitely, but anybody that knows me, they know my favorite, all-time favorite group in hip hop is De La Soul. Always been, and they remains to be. And I had my moment with Maceo too. He showed that contest that we went to New York and got cheated out of. Well, when we won regionally, De La was the special guest and Maceo was the DJ. And that song that we kept winning, we had 12 inches. We gave Maceo that song. Man, he loved it, and he kept playing it that night, and it was so dope. And it was a period of time where I used to be in touch. I used to have communication with Maceo because he just and to this day, whenever you interview him, ask him, do he remember a song by a group called Abstract Mindstate called Shook. And it was an orange Shook. It was an orange label. Everybody remembered, and they used to call it the orange label because it was orange, and that was just some little trick I came up with where I used to always get a bright color on our 12 inches so DJs can see it in the dark. So I would get like, huh?
Can you talk
You,
about the significance of De La in hip hop? Because this is what I
yes.
feel, Ice, is when Dave died, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was like, oh yeah, Dave's the greatest. Dave was the GOAT. But before he passed, they weren't saying that.
They weren't saying that.
There was the
Yeah.
casual fans that were saying it. Now the real hip hop and the people who knew, and I mean, they were the Rolling Stones of hip hop.
No, they were. They were. So let's put it like this: the De La Soul is so important because just like the Popeye quote. That's my little, I am what I am. That's all I am. De La, De La epitomizes that. They came in like, hey, we're us. I don't care what you think. You can call us hippies and weirdos. We not hippies and weirdos. We just ourselves. And that group made everybody in hip hop who was unafraid to be themselves and those who aspired to get in the game realize they can be themselves. De La Soul completely changed hip hop, completely changed it musically, appearance wise, attitude wise, because we looked at a group that look at what they went through. Like you look at my book, I Refuse to Quit. You're talking about the ebbs and flows of how I just continue to imagine being them, how long they couldn't even have any music on all of these platforms for all of these years. And then it finally happens. And when I say literally, the day it happens, like the next day, a couple of days, they lose the main one of the, they lose one of the essential players in what makes De La Soul De La Soul. He transitions, and I was sad because I selfishly never wanted to see De La Soul go away or any parts of it, and Pasta News and Dave were amazing lyrics, are amazing lyricists. They're some of the most amazing lyricists. They have the most intricate flows. They do the most unorthodox, undone patterns when they rap. And they have the most amazing live show. I've seen them a few times. And De La is just, in the spirit of what you asked, they are so important. And I feel like I saw an interview on another podcast of Earl Sweatshirt, and he said something like, everybody should study De La Soul. He was like, if you want to get a master's, and I think he said something like, not regular guy or just how to be just a cool guy, study De La Soul. And then they say, well, what record? He said, all of them. He was like, all of it, study all of it. And that's just the impact that De La Soul will have on somebody like as young as Earl Sweatshirt, because I know Earl Sweatshirt is only like early 30s or something, like 30-something years old.
Yeah.
And here I am, 53. And it's the same impact. So with that, I'm just making that to say that De La is that important that, they can influence a 20-something year old all the way to a 60-year-old, and we all feel the same thing when we hear their music. De La Soul is hands down the most incredible rap group, you know what I'm saying, to ever do it. Like, yeah.
And I even think of it like when you guys were going to do the top flow, when you guys were going to do that, you said, let's call it The Room, right? You ended up calling it The Room. Was it?
No, we changed. We just kept it floor instead of
the floor.
We
okay.
The top
so
floor.
The top floor. So when you did the top floor, what I want to say about De La is, and I'll correct myself, I don't think that they're the most important thing to hip hop. I think they're one of the most important things to music.
To music, yes. I can agree with that. Yeah.
What do you, and as I went down that rabbit hole of De La, they opened my eyes to so many things. They opened my eyes to the Jungle Brothers. And the Jungle Brothers, and you have a connection point to this too, because Hip House was a very early on stage for you.
Yeah.
How important was the Jungle Brothers for you as you were coming through too, and how important is it to the music?
Yeah, Jungle Brothers, man, were first of all, Jungle Brothers were the first ones for me, even before X Clan or any of them. Jungle Brothers were the ones that was kicking, like what I would say, kicking knowledge and talking about, African ancestry and the connection between, us and the motherland. And because they were like on their Africa. Well, shoot, think about it. He called himself Africa, Africa baby bam. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? But Jungle Brothers was so significant for what they did with the Hip House record as well, with I House You. You know, they were unafraid in the spirit of De La Soul. They were unafraid to explore different sounds, flows, and still remain being themselves. And they were just really dope MCs, like very clear. Like when you talk about the whole native tongue, one of the things that why I felt like if there was a crew that if we came out at the time, I thought we would have came out, we would have been a part of the native tongues, because the clarity that each one has, each group has, sure who they are, the originality. You know what I'm saying? Jungle Brothers they were it, man. And just calling themselves Jungle Brothers, even that. You know what I'm saying? Like everything was just Africa behind my bush. They were very significant in pushing cultural or conscious. I say they were very significant in the conscious slash alternative slash uh uh what I want to say, just that level of hip hop, just the various, they were 3 or 4 different types of hip hop in one, but the whole thing is they were dope. And that's the thing that mattered. They were dope. They were always saying something that meant something. Every song had an angle where you can leave with a little food. It was dope, man. Jungle Brothers were incredible, and we got them. We got Jungle Brothers. you know.
Tell me too about when I was talking about the relationships grant you access, but once you gain the access, you got to be cool in that situation as opposed to trying to be a clout chasing person who is
Right.
going to leverage those people. You've been around, I mean, and you're hip hop royalty, but you've been around arguably the greatest artists of our time, if not ever.
Right.
But
Yeah.
how important is it to make sure that they feel honored and protected as opposed to you always standing next to them, snapping a picture and being like, hey, I'm with the so-and-so.
Right. 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 It's super important, and that's one of the things that up and coming artists or people who want to get in the game in some form or fashion. Unfortunately, I can say that's still something that they haven't mastered or learned yet. That you gotta, like, I guess, exercise some chill and fall back a bit. And I've always been good, sometimes too good, like you said, to a fault of making myself small. And that's why I felt like the Olskool Ice-Gre moment came much later, because I was so good at making myself small around these larger figures instead of making sure my voice heard. I was always there to make sure their voice was heard and everything they got done through the support of through my support. And that's why I was allowed in so many rooms, and why these individuals kept me close by, because they felt safe and they felt like I looked at them for who they were and not for who the world perceived them to be. You know what I mean? Like they knew these individuals I welcomed into, I guess you could say, that close knit society of those who crossed the velvet rope, because I knew how to conduct myself as well as how to make them feel like who they are without taking away or adding too much. Because there's a fine line or a tightrope you have to walk with those guys that's reached the level of success where when you with them, it's like, I respect who you are. I'm not downplaying who you are, but at the same time, I'm not finna be jumping around being your cheerleader either. But I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm going to respect your position because you earned it, and you are who you've worked yourself to be. But at the same time, I'm here to also tell you, hey man, you still got to keep your feet on the ground. Don't forget where we came from, because a lot of these successful guys that I'm around I was there and there during their humble beginnings. So I'm one of the few around a lot of people that was there when they started. So it's kind of like, you can't really front on me. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a fine line. That's the answer to the question. How you do it? It's a fine line of showing respect, but not playing yourself, not playing yourself to the point that you come off like a groupie,
Well, I think I want to speak some life to you too, Ice, because you may say that there was times where, you held back or maybe you didn't, rise to this level or whatever it was. For us as the onlooker, though, we're looking at the sustainable success that you've had throughout your life and throughout your journey and throughout your whole entire story. And none of that would have been there had you taken a shortcut. And I want to compliment you because, and I would invite every single person, you need to read his book, I Refuse to Quit, because you're not just going to read Ice's story, you're going to read your own story. It was a mirror. It was a mirror in life that there are some times where I was like, when you went through what you went through in the guy from Chicago saying that he was going to, take care of you and invest and do all the stuff. And then he does it not once, but twice. And then he steps away from it. Those kind of things. I'm thinking, well, I just went through a challenge today, but look what Ice went through and then overcame. And then him standing on top of the hill wasn't saying, oh, I'm on top of the hill above everybody else. You have this message that says, I'm on top of the hill and I'm reaching down and I'm going to help you up as you go. Because both of us are going to go down to another valley at some point and we're going to need each other as we go. And I want to compliment you on that. I started the podcast, Ice, because of my two kids, Maddox and McKenna. And I didn't want them to worship idols. I wanted them to be inspired by iconic people like yourself.
Oh, wow, man. Wow.
Maddox,
Thank you.
Maddox is 13 years old. He's into sports. My daughter's 16 years old. She's into theater, singing, the arts. What advice would you have for Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names and call yourself Uncle Ice, it would be awesome.
Well, Maddox and McKenna, Uncle Ice over here has these words to say for whatever. I'm the ultimate dream chaser. So for whatever dream you're chasing, I would say be prepared for the lows, but always reach for the highs and let that be your inspiration. And in all puns intended, refuse to quit. Do not stop. Do not give up. For anyone, not even your pops, even when your pops is doubting it, if you feel it in your heart, I'm gonna stress that part. If you feel it in your heart, I have this thing, Kelly, that I say, first mind God, second mind you. That innate thing that you hear, that first mind is something higher, and you got to go with it. It's in you. It's in you. So don't doubt it. Don't change that, because if it's in your heart to do it, go for it, and go for it with the speed and agility like nobody else. Because one of the cool things that a term I hear people say is there's only one you. You are uniquely yourself. So it doesn't matter how many people is doing what you do, because by us being individuals, you're going to bring something very unique to that space, and it's going to turn out different. It's not going to be the same thing. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, if that was the case, every album recorded would have got the same results, but they didn't. You know what I'm saying? Because there was something unique or special about that. So I tell them to go for what you know, and go with all of the spirit that's in you, and just refuse to quit.
I didn't ask you one story. This is just a sidebar, but I have to take you back. Tell me about Chris Lova.
Chris Lover. It's funny. Let me tell you what's funny about that, because at my group, Abstract Mindstate, on September 20th, David Banner, we have a song on a new album on the art project, that young RJ produced. It's called Bar Louie. And Banner is on something called the Tacos and Tequila Festival. It's been going around to different cities right now. And it hit Chicago on the 20th. And he called us and said, hey, y'all want to perform Bar Louie during my set? Let's do the song. I was like, we like dope. Let's do it. But Ludacris is on the show as well. I feel like I'm finally gonna get to talk to Ludacris since the moment that my encounter with Chris Lover Lover. So I just had to tell that. So Chris Lover Lover, the story goes, it was the last Rap Sheet convention in Atlanta. The Rap Sheet was a huge hip hop news publication at the time. And it was their last one. I forget which annual it was, but it was the last annual convention. And we went there and we blew the spot up. Like they had a demo listening session and we submitted our press kit. And first of all, the panel was totally impressed by how well, here we go back to, Loud and all that, how well our press kit was put together. And they was like, now this is a press kit. They held it in the air and opened it and said, look at how they got the bio and the photo on this side and the press on this side. It's the card where you can contact them. He was like, how many times have we gotten music? They didn't put any contact information on it. We don't see any picture, no bio. They was like, this is a press kit. They was like, let me see, what is this group? They was like, where's Abstract Mindstate? Abstract Mindstate, if y'all in the room, stand up. And me and EP and I, we had our little jerseys on. We had these baseball jerseys that had Abstract Mindstate on it. And the whole room gave us a standing ovation. And then, after all that fanfare and hyping us up, they said, okay, now let's play this Abstract Mindstate. And then what did it do? Because it was all executives like A&Rs and all. They was like, well, I hope y'all music is dope as this standing ovation and presentation we just gave y'all. And the record came on, and it was that same song, Shook, that won us all those contests. The room went absolutely crazy. And then they was like, oh. And so our music turned out to be as good as our press kit. And Ludacris came running up to me. He was Chris Lover Lover at the time. He came running up to me and he said, yo, hey, my name is Chris Lover Lover. I'm a radio personality on whatever, Hot 97, whatever the station he was on. And he was like, man, can I have that music? I want to play y'all on my, like, it was like a Kiss of the Distant style. You know how every DJ have a, make it or break it, Kiss of the Distant, whatever he called it. I can be saying the wrong 2 words, but it was like a Kiss of the Distant style thing. And he said, man, here's a phone number. I want y'all to call into the station at this time. I'm going to play y'all's. And then we're going to see what the audience say. And y'all call in. So I have y'all on the line so we can talk to y'all or whatever. Okay, cool. We do it. And Chris Lover Ludacris, he was like, oh man, the station, the lights is going crazy. Everybody was across the board saying, oh man, they killed it. This is so dope, da da da. So Chris Lover, I'll never forget, he told me, he said, listen, I want you to take my personal number. He said, I can't say it. I'm at work and I'm at the radio station right now. I can't really get into what I would like to get into, but just know I have something boiling that I can't talk about right now, but please stay in touch with me. And we said, okay. And he gave our Lee Majors, our manager, he gave him the number. And Lee lost the phone number. Lee lost the phone number, man. So we never was able to get in touch with Chris Lover. And shortly after that, he came out as Ludacris. And I'm like, yo, that's Chris Lover. Like, that's him. And he went on and he blew up as Ludacris, and it was just crazy, man. And one of our guys, he's a DJ now. He used to be a club. Well, he's still a promoter too, a nightlife promoter. But he used to just do nightlife promotion. Now he's a DJ. His name is Craig Elliott. He was on our street team. Like, he was the head of our street team back when we was really doing it heavy in Chicago. But at some point back when he was heavy into the nightlife promotions, he saw Ludacris at one of John Monopoly and Don C's spot. I think it was the Dragon Room or one of those really popular Chicago staples. And he brought it up, and Ludacris remembered it. He remembered everything. I never got to see him. I never got to talk to Ludacris. I didn't even been around Ludacris, through Kanye and a couple other times, but never enough time to really it was never the right time or setting to bring that up. So I'm hoping while I'm doing this gig with David Banner on the 20th that I'll be able to say, Luda, man, let me take you back, and say the story and see if he go, yo, I remember you, just for fun. I don't want anything from Luda. It's nothing that I just want to see if he remembers so we can laugh about it. because I know him and David Banner. I'm sure they have a relationship. So that'll just be something cool. So, but that was that situation. So you see that was another.
Yes, another high and low. And here's what, if you got time for one more story,
Okay.
because I loved this one. Most of the time when you meet like a hero or an icon, they give you words, and those words like resonate for the rest of your life, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if they say 2 words to you, you just take them and you're like, oh wow, that's great. It was the reverse. When you opened up for Grand Poobah and Tupac, you were the one delivering something that helped Tupac to get out of something. Can you take us there?
Yeah, I'll take you there. So, okay, once again, one of our our management team was Lee Majors and Armis. At this time, Lee was in part of the crew. So, Armis Moncure, once again, Q. His one of his close buddies was the SGA president at Tougaloo College, the place where he and I had the hip hop club across the street, right?
Uh-huh.
He talked to him and submitted our music to them because Grand Poobah and Tupac were going to be coming there to do a concert at Tougaloo College. And he was like, man, can my group be the opening act? And once he heard the music and all that, and Q would tell him, man, they have an amazing live show. Dude was like, yes, and put us down. So we get to the event. This is as the crowd is coming into the space or whatever, and the stage, and we're backstage with Tupac and his crew. At the time, Thug Life wasn't a thing yet, but we noticed that they all had on these jackets, these Carhartt jackets with Thug Life embroidered right on the bottom. It was an embroidery, and we knew they had a little money because that was like, it was expensive to get that there, right? They had Thug Life embroidered on the bottom of these Carhartt 3/4 length Carhartt coats. And we said to ourselves, he's like, man, I bet you that's a group. And I think they became the, what was Tupac group? The Outlaws. I think that may have been the Outlaws. I just didn't, then we didn't know who they were. They just had Thug Life, or they was, I think, did he have a group called Thug Life? It may have been them, or it may have been the Outlaws, but whatever the measure, I know Thug Life was something through Tupac promoted, So, the sound man, so this was at the sound check. At sound check, they were starting to let people in. You know how sound check sometimes goes too long and they start letting people in.
Yeah.
And the sound man couldn't get something right. So Poobah's DJ Stud Doogie went over there, and Alamo. He had Stud Doogie and Alamo, and they went over there and they were trying to help the sound man. And it was like whatever was going on, it wasn't getting fixed. So the actual artist, like Tupac came over there not Tupac, Poobah came over there for a minute, and then Tupac came over there. And everybody like looking under the thing, everybody trying to figure out, we're even standing over there because we're the open act. So everybody concerned about the sound getting right. And this dude was up in the bleachers and he just hollers down, man, won't y'all get out the way and let the sound man do his job? And Tupac looked up at him and said, won't you shut the F up and mind your own business? And dude said, won't you make me mind my own business? Oh, why did he say that? Man, Tupac just snapped off and he tried to jump up there and pull dude through the railing down to the floor with him from the bleachers, because the bleachers was up kind of high. And Tupac, he jumped up there and caught like the bottom of his pants. He was trying to get his leg, but kind of caught his pants and was yanking and pulling. And dude, he fighting back and pulling back, and they was like security was starting to come. It was finna get out of hand. Tupac was about to tear this place up. And his guys, with the Thug Life jackets, they was trying to calm him down, but they couldn't get him to stop. He was just going off. Oh, I tear this place up. No, he going all off. And so I'm looking around and I'm seeing what's gonna happen. I'm peeping the scene. I was like, yo, they're about to shut this concert down. We at Tougaloo College. This is not the place for this to happen. I was like, we need this so bad. Like all I cared about was us getting on that stage. So I runs over to Tupac and I was like, Pot, man, listen. He was like, I was like, man, don't worry about this dude right here, man. We he don't know what's going on because he know we part of his side because we're not, And he was like, no, man, but he was going off. He think I'm a punk. He must think I'm a punk or something. And I was like, Pot, don't let us think you a punk. And I looked him in his eyes and I was like,
Hold on for 1 second. I
Hey
lost your
man,
audio. Hold on. I lost your audio right there when you were talking about that. Start again.
oh, did you hear me?
No, now I
Okay,
can
I
hear you.
said Pac. Okay, I said Pac. Don't nobody think you a punk, bro. We know who you are. I said, man, forget that dude. He drunk, and the dude was drunk, and he was from Chicago. Because I remember him saying it, and I was like, oh man, he embarrassing me because we from Chicago. You know what I'm saying? And but anyway, he was drunk. He was drunk, and I said, no man, nobody think you a punk, Pac. I said, he was like, yeah man, but you don't talk to me. I said, listen, and he looked me right in my eyes. I said, bro, we your opening act. I said, you can tear this place up, Pop. I said, and you're going to end up going back to Oakland or whatever the next stop is on this tour you and Pooh are doing. And I said, and y'all in Jackson, Mississippi. I said, I'm from Chicago, man. I know how everybody look at Mississippi. Y'all looking at this like whatever, this is nothing. I said, but for us, man, this means everything. And he's like, look straight in my face. And he just calmed down and he shook his head like, it was like he didn't say anything, but he had this shake like, I hear you, bro. It was like he said, I hear you, bro. And he just did that and he walked off and went to like it was like in this gymnasium, whatever. It was like a room they fixed up like the green room. And he just walked to that. And the dudes with Thug like Coach was like, man, what did you say to him? You know, da da da. And I had all this adrenaline going. And I looked at them and I remember frowning up and kind of just like walked off like whatever with y'all. Cause I was like mad at them for not being able to calm him down. I had all this adrenaline going because I thought the thing was about to get shut down. And all I wanted was us to have this chance to be on stage. And Pac heard me and he calmed down and stopped. And that was like our moment. Like I always had that moment with Pac, like, you know, and that's when I say I always from that day on, I said, man, he not crazy. I was like, that dude got a lot of sense because I wasn't nobody. He could have, I don't know where that could have went, but he heard me. You know, that could have went anywhere. The dudes could have been like, get away from my boy and stole on me or something, or swung on, you know, I don't know. But I was caught up in the moment. It was a lot of adrenaline. I didn't want to lose this opportunity. And he listened to me, man. Pac listened to me. He walked it off. He stopped acting crazy and just walked off and went back in the green room, you know? So, and then he saw me a little later at the Jack the Rapper, because that was the same year. And he was coming. He had about 30 dudes walking behind him. He was in the front. And Madeline Woods from Video LP tried to do a live on the spot interview with him. And in the middle of the interview, he just started cursing and kind of messed it all up. And she was like, Tupac, get out of here. Like was like pushing him out of the camera. And he was just laughing like, and all I remember doing was looking at that moment saying, man, I wish Madeline Woods would interview us. You know what I'm saying? I was like, man. And so Pac kept coming, and now he eventually getting to us because we watching it from a distance. And I kind of stepped in front of him. I said, what's up? You remember me? And his guys, I'll never forget how all of the dudes with him looked like they was kind of tightening up, like they was ready, like, oh, it's going to be a fight, like they finna jump me or something. They thinking I'm finna say like something crazy to Tupac. I said, you remember me? And Pac did the little, you know, the Scooby-Doo. I call it the Scooby-Doo when you tilt your head like, ooh. And he kind of gave me that little thing, kind of like, man, you do look familiar. I said, dude, I'm the dude from the group, you know, at Tougaloo College in Mississippi. He was like, oh yeah, my man, what's happening? And he like gave me love. And then he said, you see how I blew a spot up? You see how I blew a spot up? Talking about Madeline Woods. And I just kind of shook my head and he walked on, you know. But I was like, damn, Pac. I was like, damn, Pac. Like it's like every time it seemed like he being cool, he just get wild right behind it, you know. But yeah, that was my I had those two moments with Pac, and he remembered me. He remembered me from Tougaloo.
That's amazing, man. Well,
yeah.
Ice, it has been an absolute pleasure. And like I said before, I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life.
I don't have any problems with that. You're a good dude.
Well, it's incredible to see the heart of a dreamer and to be a good guy. Like you said, I'm a good guy in a bad hood. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, good guy from a bad block.
Yeah, from a bad block, and you've proved that part of it. And for the dreamer in all of us, you give us hope, man. And I want to thank you so much for all that.
Man, thank you.
Not only that you've done, but what you're doing. And so,
man, thank you, and thank you for supporting my book as well.
Oh, the book is amazing. It's out. You guys can grab it on Amazon. You guys can see it right there. I've refused to quit. I tell you, the only challenge with this book is when you buy it, be ready because you won't set it down. I grabbed a hold of it and I pushed off my dad duties. I pushed off my husband duties. I pushed off everything because I was so engulfed in the book. And it's absolutely amazing. And I want to thank you again for being on the show.
Man, thank you. That's a compliment. Thank you for having me, Kelly. Man, I appreciate this for real.
Oh, it's incredible. So what I'm going to do is we're going to run a commercial now. Stick around for a second, though, Ice, because I have a couple things I want to talk about. But Ice, you're officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Peace.
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make